for joining us for our review of the items that we have coming forward in the future on an agenda. So we're going to have some staff information presented to us, but welcome to the October 23rd, 2023 council meeting, where we will begin with our call to order and introductions, and we'll start with our clerk for this evening.
Ariel Smith, lead city clerk.
Dimple Ashmira at large.
Ariel Smith, lead city clerk.
Good evening, Lawana Mayfield, Council at Large.
Braxton Winston, Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening,
Vi Lyles, Mayor.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Victoria Watlington, District 3.
Patrick Baker, City Attorney.
All right, so with those introductions, we'll begin with the consent item agenda. Is there any consent item that has a question, Ms. Harris, or any review that you provided us today? Is there anything there?
Thank you and good evening. No, Madam Mayor, not for consent. There was one business item Ms. Mayfield had a clarification on, and I believe that was sufficient for this minute, but that will also be one in the chamber. So unless there's any other questions, I didn't have any outstanding questions for consent items.
Are there any additional questions from the council? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve consent items 14 through 38? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's approved. So we have two items on our action review agenda tonight, and I believe I'll turn this over to the manager for introductions.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. As the mayor indicated, we have two items tonight. We have the Nest Commission anti-displacement recommendations, and I believe we have some friends in the audience tonight that have helped with that commission, as well as arts and culture update, which I believe we'll also have some additional friends in the audience that have helped with that. And so, Mayor, before I turn it back over to you, I don't know if we'll have any walk-up music tonight, but we do have Rebecca Hefner in the house, and she is currently serving as the Acting Director of Housing and Neighborhood Services, and that's because Sean Heath has been promoted to Assistant City Manager. So just good news all around in the city, and I'd like to turn it back over to you, Mayor.
So thank you very much, Sean and Rebecca, but I would like to actually remind myself that I made some phone calls about 2 years ago on the idea of how do we deal with the areas of displacement in our community. And I want you to know that both Kim Graham, who I've known since she was a baby at Johnson C. Smith, I would tell the story about her she was taking the kids to somewhere, and I think she ran out of gas or hit the other car, but it doesn't matter. It all worked out fine. She grew up, and it was great. And then, of course, all of us know Justin Harlow, who has served with, oh, I'm sorry, somebody says they really don't know you well. So, but I remember Justin as we served at our very first year of service. But Braxton, me, Justin, I don't know, Ed was probably already seasoned, so. Justin? Yeah. Oh, okay, well, it was the same time, so all of us together.
Mayor.
So with that, and now we're also joined by Council Member Bakari. Okay, so thank you. Go at it. Not after it. Go. Okay, so thank you. Go at it.
Can we get
What is that?
Can we get the televisions to be turned down in the room, please?
Can you hear it?
Oh, yeah. Or the feed is in the speakers or something.
Can you hear it?
The feed is in the speakers or something.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm excited to be here tonight. We're going to share with you the recommendations of the BEST Commission, also known as the Nest Commission, in an effort to advance your work around neighborhood equity and stabilization. Again, I'm Rebecca Hefner, really thrilled to be serving as your Acting Director of Housing and Neighborhood Services. As the Mayor introduced, I am joined by our Nest Commission co-chairs, Dr. Justin Harlow, former City Council member, dentist, small business owner, and Kim Graham, Executive Director of the Greater Charlotte Apartment. Hello and be recognized. Thank you for coming out to join us this evening. Justin and Kim have really provided tremendous leadership on this critical community issue, and I'd like to start off by thanking them and the members of the Nest Commission for their hard work and dedication to this issue and to Charlotte's residents. So the focus of tonight's presentation will be the much-awaited programmatic recommendations from Nest. But first, I want to share a little bit with you about the Commission and the citywide anti-displacement strategy, just to put those recommendations in context. So the Nest Commission was created as part of the implementation of the Charlotte Future 2040 plan. Thank you. They've been charged with reviewing and recommending specific anti-displacement strategies and tools for protecting residents of moderate to high vulnerability to displacement. They began meeting in early 2022, and they've been reporting out to the Housing Safety and Community Committee over that time. All right, so the 15-member Nest Commission brings a really diverse set of perspectives and creative ideas to the challenges of displacement. The membership that you all have appointed is comprised of housing advocates, neighborhood leaders, residents who have experienced displacement, real estate professionals, housing finance experts, and affordable housing developers. So this is a picture of some of those Nest Commission members at a community workshop they hosted this spring. They were out in the community collecting resident feedback on the anti-displacement strategy and recommendations. Are you getting to hear me twice? Are you getting to hear me twice? Are you getting to hear me twice? All right. Just because I know I'm going to get some flack here, I do want to recognize that Councilmember Watlington was indeed in attendance at this community workshop. So she and I have been kind of conveniently cropped out of both sides of this photo, but I just want to put that in the room. All right, so here's some key milestones. Nest began their work in February of 2022. They really dug in, they analyzed the issues, they organized around 3 work streams, and then delivered an initial work plan to Council Committee last August. Later that fall, they were asked to develop an anti-displacement strategy that would serve as a framework for their recommendations, and they then presented that strategy to Council Committee in June of 2023, followed by a suite of programmatic and investment recommendations that were presented to Council Committee in August. Along the way, Nest has been busy. They've been reviewing and advising on current housing programs and anti-displacement efforts. That includes implementation of the Staying in Place pilot and development of the House Charlotte Plus pilot. They made a recommendation to Council Committee that the city invest in the Homes Tax Relief Program in coordination with Mecklenburg County, which of course you all adopted through the FY 2024 budget process. And then as you saw in the last slide, they've even organized community engagement activities. So in short, they have been very, very busy. And so we have been very, very busy. So quick moment of thanks to all of the staff who provided incredible support along the way, folks in housing, community engagement, the planning department, strategy and budget, and we even had help from Mecklenburg County. Quick overview of the anti-displacement strategy, and then we'll jump right into the recommendations. In the first half of 2023, we engaged with the consultants from HR&A Advisors to develop a citywide anti-displacement strategy. So I initially described this work to them as cleaning out the garage. So imagine your garage or bonus room or that drawer somewhere in your house. Our garage was full of lots of tools and programs and opportunities, but they had become disorganized and all stacked up and jumbled along the way. So we asked them to pull all those tools out of the garage, assess them for impact, what were they for, and how well did they accomplish it, identify any gaps in our current programming, and then put them back together in an organized way. So that organized way became the city's citywide anti-displacement strategy. I just want to make a note that this is not designed as a standalone strategy. So anti-displacement is part of the Housing Charlotte framework. It is part of the 2040 comprehensive plan. It supports the work we are doing in corridors of opportunity, and it's aligned with the community-wide Home for All plan. It's even connected to your key initiatives around the digital divide and workforce development. The primary benefit of having this strategy is that it allows us to accelerate and scale our efforts, pivot quickly when conditions change, and over the last several years, we have seen a lot of conditions change, and it allows us to tailor our approach to best meet the needs of both individual households and our unique neighborhoods. So what we learned in particular through the Staying in Place pilot program is that we can be most impactful when we can quickly match the right tool or resource to the right household or individual in the right place at the right time. Very briefly, the anti-displacement strategy supports 4 goals. You can see them here: support residents, strengthen communities, foster inclusivity, and empower business, although the 4th strategy will be part of a later planning effort. And of course, the strategy proposes an initial set of metrics. Staff, along with NEST members, are working to build those out in a trackable and organized way. Things like increasing the number of affordable units in our vulnerable neighborhoods, increasing home ownership for low to moderate income households, increasing access to services to build stability. As a recovering data officer, I have to say, I envision a dashboard in our future, something that'll be easy for you all to see how we're doing implementing your goals around anti-displacement. Finally, I just want to make a note that this work is not new and it's not waiting. So many of the recommended activities are in progress, including investments that you all have made in supporting residents, working with neighborhoods and the planning department to conduct anti-displacement planning with our neighborhoods and as part of the community area planning workshops, and then working on both online and physical resource hubs where materials that are accessible to individuals and families in our community, those who need them most. Well, with that context in mind, I'd like to invite Justin and Kim to share the NEST Commission recommendations.
Thanks for fixing the echo that we had there. Glad to. There he is. Thank you to the Mayor Pro Tem. Again, I'm Justin Harlow, co-chair with Kim Graham. I'm glad to be back at a dinner meeting, but for being on this side of the microphone. Thank you, Mayor, for appointing us as co-chairs and charging us with helping lead this group to help meet some of the goals that this council has set. I do want to again acknowledge a few of our NEST Commission members that joined us this evening. Thank you all for being here. We've got a really good team of 15, and thank you all for appointing all of them, and appreciate the efforts. So Rebecca's giving you the background, and I want to acknowledge the Chair Wallington and Vice Chair Slack Mayfield, who really pushed us and pressed us. They said, hey, look, you hired this consultant, you've set these goals, you've got this strategy, give us the meat here, right? What are you recommending? What type of investment are you asking for? and how can we, help support citizens here in our city. So we've got 8 recommendations that have moved through the Housing, Safety, and Community Committee that we're presenting tonight for your action review. The first 6, or I guess 7 of them, are supporting residents, specifically that goal 1 of the strategy, one of which supports and strengthens communities. That's goal 2, and then goal 3 is really a 9th recommendation that we'll bring back to you likely in the spring. Our goal is to come to you around the budget time in the spring about a kind of a sustainable funding source, kind of an anti-displacement fund. We're sprinkling those breadcrumbs on you today, but the 8 recommendations is really what we'll be discussing today. So here's the 8. This is, again, this has been seen by the Housing and Safety Committee a few times. And I hope others have had an opportunity to look at it in advance. But acquisition, rehab, and resale, House Charlotte Plus, accessory dwelling units, small landlord investments, referral sources, shared pilot programs, NOAA communities. All of these are topics we've heard about before, correct? We talk about these a lot when we're talking about affordable housing, when we're talking about building communities, when we use that G word, gentrification. So we'll go through and map out each one of these one by one on what this means, and each of them will have the per unit cost. The total here totals up to about $5.5 million. We understand that there's some ARPA funds dangling around there, so the Nest Commission's asking for that. I see the manager looking at me funny, but that's where we're going with this. But our work streams with our subcommittee work streams within the Nest Commission have kind of developed these 8 with this 9th one that we'll continue to work on funding. So start with acquisition, rehab, and resale. So this was a program originally designed by the council in 2021 with an initial $1.5 million investment. We're asking you to kind of double down on that. Funding generally is being used to help rehab, first acquire a unit, rehab a unit, and then take proceeds from that sale and reinvest it back into the program. The city has already seen good success with this program. We believe that with more investment, there will be more participation and an opportunity to help also deed restrict units in a home ownership model, not just a rental model. House Charlotte Plus, most of us are probably familiar with House Charlotte. House Charlotte Plus was a pilot that was launched that increased that down payment assistance that the city availed to various prospective home buyers in the corridors of opportunities. And this funding, of course, helps, provide a forgivable loan for down payments for individuals up to 80% AMI trying to buy homes. This pilot program, we believe, should be more invested in to add another $1 million into to help stimulate and encourage home ownership, particularly in the corridors of opportunity to support your staying in place initiatives. Accessory dwelling units. So this really hits home on all the conversations that were being had in the UDO process, the Comp 2040 plan process, the couple different avenues here for accessory dwelling units that we're recommending. There's a homeowner model as it relates to allowing homeowners to have up to 100% of construction for accessory dwelling units to, in return, deed restrict for a 15-year affordability period. And then, of course, the program has to recover some of that cost over time, and that recycles back in the program. This is something that will help encourage homeowners who've got, whether it be garage apartments or have enough land on their parcels to be able to build something, or even investors who maybe own land or multiple pieces of property where they are able to support the council and the city's goals of creating more affordable units in various areas, and the city participating and helping them fund some of that construction to help support and subsidize local investors or developers or local homeowners. We've had a lot of conversation in the Nest Commission about the city having a lot of tools as it relates to supporting large-scale developers, big apartment communities and developers and landowners, but not so much for what we're referring to as kind of small landlords and who maybe look to support the city's goals as well around affordability. So homeowners, landowners, or property owners who own, various duplexes or triplexes or multiple single-family units across the city, maybe want to do some type of upgrades to those things and/or build accessory dwelling units on those properties. But there's not really a true policy mechanism right now that allows for these smaller engaged landlords to participate. Most of the policies suggest that these property owners or developers have to own a minimum amount of units in order to participate. But there are folks out there that may say, hey, I'm okay with deed restricting my home and property, but I only have a portfolio of X amount of units. I might not qualify for housing trust fund dollars, but here's another opportunity to do that. So we're recommending some investment for small landlords, $1 million initially for small landlords to be able to participate and create some gap funding of their own to then, of course, again, you'll hear this theme, deed restriction, 15-year affordability restriction if there's some city investment there. So those first five, I guess, have a lot to do with specific adding units to the stock, right? Or rehabbing existing units already in the stock. The last three or four will focus more on, reducing barriers, information, technical resources. So this one here is reducing barriers to programs and information. So often we hear as community leaders, as elected officials, you hear, oh, I didn't know that this program existed. And how do you know things are being done to us without us? All of these types of things. We believe that there's got to be a little bit of more investment in helping build up neighborhood info. Let's reinvigorate communities and neighborhood associations again. We know that post-COVID, there's been a bit of a decline in just community participation in a lot of things. And so helping reorganize and train community groups, create these neighborhood information networks, and specifically what we're calling resiliency hubs. These are neighborhood-based spaces that bring together various city resources, city information departments that help residents kind of achieve that stability and support on the ground into the communities that they're already living in. So this is a $100,000 for over 3-year investment that we're recommending to you all to help reduce these barriers and help reshare information about a lot of these programs. This goes hand in hand with the next recommendation about referral sources and resources. Again, I'm not going to, oversell it, but we've all heard the term silos, and we're working in this silo and that silo. People aren't working together. There's a variety of community groups in this city, in this county, that we believe could be brought a little bit closer together to help disseminate resources and referrals to those that need it. Various nonprofits, various city agencies, county agencies, even private entities that are participating in this type of work. And so we're asking some investment as well to help kind of push that information out and also help develop more of those partnerships through a variety of nonprofits and community networks. Lastly is a shared ownership pilot. The city over time has talked about, how do we support, things like land trust? How do we support innovative housing models? And so we're recommending a pilot, designing a pilot to increase kind of this community capacity to advance some of these innovative ownership models. We've seen over the last few years and even this year of late, some of our local nonprofits and some of these local groups that do this work already, they've been building some capacity and receiving some investment from various agencies, the county included. And so we're asking the city to just, start with a relatively small city investment, $250,000, and some technical assistance to some community and nonprofit partners. Who gets that, I think, is up to you how that gets outlined. But over time, we're hoping that this helps support the acquisition of various residential properties, maybe for publicly owned land, to help support some of this shared ownership model to try to increase some affordable units and help fight some displacement in various communities. So that's our 8. Well, we're going to address some questions. Kim's here. I'm here for the presentation. Kim's here for the questions. But I do want to leave you with this, with the anti-displacement funding. Again, this has been heard a little bit from every time I've spoken to the Housing and Safety Committee. We do believe that a dedicated funding source is needed. This type of work, like any other affordable housing work or any other displacement work, has to be sustainable long term. If we're going to be a city that invites growth and that invites, employers to come and create an environment in a city that people want to move to and be a part of, we know that there will likely be some displacement from that. We're not a commission that believes we can solve the problem, but we do believe that with the right budget item and right operating expense and allocation, that an anti-displacement program or fund could be created here. We're going to bring some recommendations to the Housing Safety Committee again, later this year, if not early next year, and then hopefully be a part of those 2025 budget conversations come the spring and the summer of next year. And that'll be kind of our capstone for our three-year appointment for the Nest Commission. So with that, these are kind of the next steps. Of course, we hear things at an action review, and then there's discussion and emails and conversations, and we hope that we'll be in attendance, my commission members will be in attendance at your November 13th business meeting, hoping that you can support these recommendations and advance future ones going forward. So
Thank
we
you.
are open to any questions.
Thank you very much. Both the staff and the two co-chairs and the members, we really want you to know how much we know that there's a housing crisis in the city, and what you're doing addresses the problem, and you've brought us an array of things that we could possibly do and fund. So I want to say very much how much you appreciate the thoughtfulness, the professionalism around how you approach this, and say thank you to each and every one of you. But there are some questions, and we're going to start with Ms. Mayfield, and then we'll go to Mr. Driggs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Harlow, and the entire Nest Commission for all the work that you all have been doing. Question for you. So we have that one picture of an amazing opportunity where we had the home that was rehabbed and sold for $239. That closed in December of 2020. We're now in October 2023. Based on the most recent evaluation, that home is now valued with about $60,000 in equity. What I want to know is, in this conversation, before continuing to expand, and I did not ask this when you came to committee because I forgot about it, so I apologize, so I'm throwing it into the universe now. For us to look at where we have made investments and see what assistance they need now. So we know that the city allocated funds to go along with the county to help some people with the property taxes. That's also a strenuous leap for a lot of people to go through the process, and it's $640. If you went from a tax bill that was under $1,000 to a tax bill that's over $2,500, $640 isn't fixing that gap. So I think what will also be helpful is you're having conversations for us to be as intentional as possible, where we have made rehab investments in the individuals that still live and that are owner occupied. I would like to see more of the focus there, for the simple fact that I would hope we don't want to see is in another year or two, this home being sold on the market because they weren't able to maintain it, not necessarily because of the financial equity that's in it. We want to make sure that they can maintain the homes, if that can make sense. Do you know, Mr. Harlow, if there was any, Dr. Harlow, my apologies, if there was any discussions on that level?
I do not. I feel like you asked some form of this question in the committee meeting, maybe not as specific as you're getting. I mean, and I agree with you. We don't want to lose an asset that we've already invested in and not recoup the benefit of why we invested in it in the first place. And I'm going to turn to staff a little bit on this one, but I imagine we can get some data of where any of those investments have been made and see, one, does the city still have a, a stake in this at all? Or has the property been sold and has the proceeds been reinvested back into the program? We know the market has changed significantly. I don't know if you can buy this house anywhere close to this cost anymore. But we did not specifically track that, to answer your question. No, we did not specifically look at, hey, here's where investments were made, and is there more investment that needs to be made here?
So what I would ask for staff to consider as we're building out these recommendations, which are absolutely amazing recommendations, I would just like for us to add on the front end, not an afterthought. Let's look at where we made investments. Here's a great relationship to work with the county and look at the tax bill to see if we have any challenges with the individuals being able to meet that, and if we can be more targeted with our funding. Because again, if you've gone from 1,045 to 2,500 on your tax bill and you're on a fixed income, that can create a serious hardship. So we may have an opportunity in there, Mr. Manager, to be a little bit more targeted. Thank you all.
All right,
Thank you for the
Mr.
question.
Driggs.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a problem that concerned me when we were going through the 2040 plan, because I thought there were a lot of provisions in that plan that actually give rise to the need for what you're doing. By the way, great to see you, Dr. Harlow. So I guess I'm wondering, how are we quantifying the problem and measuring our success in addressing the problem? Like, how do we define the issue that this is meant to deal with?
I think I see it as twofold. And Kim, you got a microphone here. Don't forget that.
I was just working, turning it on.
That's what it. I think we do see it. We see it as twofold. One is, some of these are pilots. Some of these are new, and so we want to see full investment being used to start, and then that creates future investment to say, okay, hey, this was successful. People did participate in this ADU pilot. They did take advantage of this new program, and someone actually has gotten to stay in this new dwelling at a 15-year affordability period. I think that's probably the lowest hanging fruit. What we're trying to build, as we've mentioned, the dashboard part of it, and then actually trying to get to a place where the city can actually track displacement. I think is the longer thing. Right now, there's not really anything that says, hey, we know for a fact without a lot of speculation that, hey, displacement's happening here, or someone at a community meeting came and told us about something, or they emailed, you all about it. And so trying to get to a true tracking mechanism to say, okay, not that we're, we just want to be able to know, okay, if these investments were made here, how did this affect the community short-term and long-term?
So, yes.
I can see them inching up here, so I was like, I'm going to be quiet here.
I've really kicked off a storm here. Okay.
I'm going to add just a little bit around the metric tracking. You have a fantastic data team in your innovation and technology department, and they help us track displacement in several different ways. One of the ways is that we're able to track direct displacement when large communities, for example, have displacement events. So we can track displacement directly with residents in that way. We also have a lot of information about property sales and property taxes and other ways of looking at how frequently properties turn over, and both who is leaving neighborhoods and who is coming into neighborhoods in new housing, both based on the people themselves, but also on the cost of the ways that housing costs change in those neighborhoods. So we track displacement in a lot of different ways. There's not a single definition or a single number that we have, but we track it in these multiple ways. And then when we're looking at, and I'll just go back here for one moment, when we're looking at how we know how we're doing, we're really thinking about how many deed-restricted units are available, how much home ownership has grown, and how many people have accessed and leveraged the resources and referrals that are available, because we're looking at the deed restrictions help to create conditions where displacement won't occur. Home ownership is a stabilizing condition for many households. And then the residents, as we connect them to services around finding jobs or childcare or transportation or all of the other resources and referrals that help households build stability, that's how we're thinking about tracking how we're doing in terms of investing in these initiatives.
I would just also say that built into the pro forma, whether it's the ARR program or House Charlotte, there should be a little bit of give. We expect that housing markets are going to improve. We don't want them to go down in value. We want them to improve in value. That creates more equity for the homeowner. But there should be something in the pro forma that compensates for a 10% increase or a 20% increase in property taxes, such that that household's income can grow, that equity will grow for that homeowner. If we were in a different inflationary time, they could access equity in a better way, but we know that capital is expensive right now. So I think we should look at it from a good thing, but it is a challenge and could be a challenge. You say a $640 increase. It could be a $3,000 increase, right? And so we don't want that. That's even scarier. But I do believe that pro formas for those programs should at least include a 5 to 10% increase in property taxes, just as an expectation from housing property values growing.
So displacement versus gentrification. I mean, if we look at these issues, in my mind, you've got a neighborhood, for example, and the neighborhood is kind of invaded by investors. And the owners of the homes in that neighborhood get a lot of money for their homes, and they sell voluntarily. And so that's not what we want in terms of wanting to preserve affordable housing at that location. They're not necessarily unhappy. Other situations, people are in their homes, they're not interested in selling, but they can't afford the taxes. So I've suggested that maybe we ought to have an equity loan type of facility available to those people to insulate them from the cost of higher taxes on the basis of the increase in the value of their home. I think there are some other solutions we could still explore, but I appreciate the work that you've done. And my last question was going to be for the manager. What budget line would these funds come from? Are we going to put this in housing and neighborhood development, or?
So, Mr. Driggs, what we would do, and it's a little strategic what we're trying to do tonight, both the Nest Commission, Arts and Culture, because they both are talking about sustainable long-term funding. So the goal would be to have as much information to you as possible so that when we get to the annual strategy meeting in January, that you can make some decisions based on that. But we've been able to cobble together CARES funds, ARPA funds over the last few years, as well as being able to dip into the trust fund. But as you know, and you're leading the witness, those funds have dried up.
Yeah, well, that's something that concerns me. But anyway, thank you for that. We'll talk later. Ms. Graham, it's great to see you, too.
Good to see you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. Good work. I think, as I've said before in the committee meetings, what I'm hearing is that this work, kind of, I guess, has a high fidelity to the comp plan. What this really is the comp plan at work, not just the creation of this Nest Commission, but what I see, what I saw is that in the end, this commission has gone back and really dove into what are the actionable kind of menu of policy recommendations that exist in the comp plan and other supporting documents, as you pointed out there, that we as a community, we as a city council can focus on in order to address displacement that is happening now and that is coming down the line. So I think this is a good exercise, not just for the city council, but for the city as a whole, to see how we as different groups, as different bodies, can utilize this document, utilize this existing policy to move our government and move our community forward. This is, for example, I see some things about that create 10-minute neighborhoods in here by bringing resiliency hubs and those resource and referral services what they're saying, what I hear them saying is that these are resources that you shouldn't have to travel. You shouldn't have to get on a bus or take a car or make an appointment across town, that these are resources that can be implemented inside of neighborhoods. So as we're thinking of building 10-minute neighborhoods, yes, it is the hard and heavy infrastructure investments that need to be made. Yes, it is the development of different kinds of neighborhoods and housing, but it is also putting the things into the communities, you know what I'm saying, so that people that are already there can get to them quicker. So we have to be a little bit flexible with the way we're thinking about building our neighborhoods for something that doesn't exist now. I do have a suggestion that I would suggest City Council focus on, and then the City of Charlotte focus on. ADUs. I really think we should figure out how to do, I'll call it an ADU blitz, right? Given that the amount of neighborhood 1 and neighborhood 2 place types that exist across this city, there are a ton of opportunities, notwithstanding HOA rules, that this is a real potential to address potential displacement effects in neighborhoods defined by these place types and zoning districts. You know, thinking about, again, the idea of anti-displacement, right? These ADUs can provide extra income opportunities for those that are being impaired by property tax bills that are increasing, right? It provides opportunities for multi-generational families to age in place. These things get at the root, seems to get most directly at the root of a big problem. And again, these neighborhood 1 and neighborhood 2, I think it's something like 85% of developable land space. And those are the types of place types where ADUs are going to be most highly concentrated. And we have efforts around ADUs going on across the state. For instance, Raleigh has been doing some innovative things where we can learn about ADU development, what's going well, and where problems are. This is not something where we have to figure out, you know, starting from scratch. And then also taking advantage of private industries like our partners at Lowe's and in the development community, which are bringing technology solutions online right now around ADUs. I've met with some folks that were using AI to go into people's backyards and putting up an iPad in there, looking at dimensions and suggesting what is going to, considering topography and using GIS, what would work in certain places now. So ADUs really do seem like that's an actionable step that can be done quickly and to increase housing supply, to deal with affordability, and to age in place. So I really hope we really look at that as an actionable item over the next couple years. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions? Ms. Watlington?
Thank you. Couple of things. So you guys have heard me say this before. Thanks. I'm really glad to see this work happening. Appreciate all you and the Nest Commission and Rebecca and your team are doing as well. I'm happy to see the different recommendations at various points on the spectrum. I've just got a couple of things that, like Ms. Mayfield said, sorry that I didn't think of it until just now, but don't be mad. A couple of things I wanted to suggest in the spirit of the ADU conversation. If you could go back to that slide.
This slide.
Yeah, we can stay here. If the idea is to accelerate this and do it as much as possible, I'm just curious as to why we would limit it to homeowners up to 80% AMI. I get the idea of wanting to help folks create an income for those that might be at risk of displacement, but as I think about opportunities for folks to increase the number of available units in a neighborhood without particularly changing its character, and also without causing homeowners to have to relocate or sell their property or convert to non-owner occupancy. I'm just curious as to what is driving the eligibility to stop at 80% AMI.
I think we're leaving it open a little bit. You know, even in parentheses here, just up to 110. Again, with these recommendations, as we leave tonight, they are now yours. We welcome, I mean, don't chop and screw it too much, but we do welcome those types of suggestions to say, hey, you know, higher AMI likely means more homeowners, and who possibly could participate. And so I think we're very open to that. I think the concept or the idea, I think, probably stemmed, and help me make sure I'm right on this, is that, you know, for those that, you know, could benefit the most are also the people who are already at risk. And so generally some lower income folks who might own homes, a lot of the people that Mr. Driggs was just referring to that might have this tax burden. But by all means, you know, increase that as you all see fit.
I think the other thing is, you know, we know that we're working with a finite pot of money, right? And so when we increase the percentage, you're going to open it up to more people who will probably qualify for it. And we've had this conversation in committee, you know, do we keep it at 80% knowing that we're laser focused on a group, or do we expand it and get more people? But, you know, we might not be able to help as many people at the lower end. So I think for you all, it's just a question of what your goals are.
Thank you. I just want to make sure there wasn't a policy or like a legislative or any kind of regulatory barrier. So to that end, I would offer to the group that if we want to accelerate it, we can open it up. And then the conversations around making selections, if you will, if we need to put some parameters in that place, we can do so. But certainly don't think that, I think that we can open it up to as many homeowners as possible if we're really trying to accelerate results there. So that's one piece that we can talk about going forward. The other thing is that when we talk about a dedicated funding source, I'd love to see us tie this dedicated funding source to public investment. We already know that we have this conversation every time we talk about investing in big economic development deals, in transit, along corridors where we know that are going to be subject to displacement. So I'd love to see a policy focused around how do we ensure that whatever revenue's coming from those public investments, or as a result of the public investments, that we already bake in this anti-displacement component. And then finally, as we look forward, I know that we were laser focused on things that we could do within the city programmatically, but I would love to see this work expand to talk about what needs to be true at the state and at the federal level so that we can get prepared from a policy standpoint to be able to push a legislative agenda. So I look forward to seeing how this work expands its scope going forward. But great work, and thank you for that. I look forward to supporting next month.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Ajmera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great work. Great to see you all, and appreciate the work. I know Dr. Harlow was the chair of the committee when he was on council, so certainly now it's great to see you being involved and leading along with Ms. Graham. Appreciate your work. And Ms. Hefner, you know, data is a key, so it's great to have someone in a leadership position who has the data background, because that's the key to addressing affordable housing crisis. As we start to address and calculate where we are and where we need to go, I think that will help us make very important policy decisions. I really like the proposal here with the ADUs. I know the cities and states across this nation have implemented similar tools to increase the housing supply, especially when it comes to ADUs. So it's great to see that as part of your recommendations. But what I have also seen where municipalities are trying to address barriers. We are talking about regulatory barriers to increase the housing supply, especially ADUs. Have you looked into that? And or maybe that might be part of the overall ADUs who may not participate in this program, but we want to increase the supply by making it more where the process is more friendly, where it doesn't cost $15,000, $20,000 just to apply, or just to go through the process, right? I think that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of folks to even start building ADUs. So, or even housing providers, have we looked into the regulatory barriers and how we can address that?
Yes, thank you for the question. So we've been implementing an ADU pilot program as part of staying in place. And through that pilot program, we have about 7 units that are getting ready to go to contract that will be constructed, both home ownership opportunities and the investor-owned opportunities. And we've spent the last several months working a cross-departmental team with housing and planning and IT and students from UNC Charlotte and a couple of builders in our community. They've been looking at that very question. So how can we design a program that people can easy to understand, access quickly, move through the process quickly. So we've incorporated a couple of elements, for example, with Mecklenburg County, the opportunity to have master plans, essentially not quite pre-approved, but the plan itself is approved as long as you can demonstrate that it fits on your lot and your lot's appropriate for it. So we've been working on pulling together a pattern book, essentially, of those types of plans, as well as looking at other regulatory barriers. And the planning and H&S have been working really closely together, looking at that range of barriers to affordable housing. And we think there's a lot of different things that can be done, but that's specific to the ADUs, as well as also we have someone on staff now who's really helping people to navigate that process, especially for individual homeowners who want to do the ADUs or participate in other programs, but they're having trouble figuring out what the process is. So we're really trying to make it easy on anyone, whether you're an individual homeowner or an affordable housing developer, to navigate our programs and processes so we can get more affordable housing built across the city.
Well, that's great to hear. I recently read an article in the newspaper about a family where a son was building an ADU for his mother, and where they would be able to live close, but at the same time address the affordable housing. I'm not sure if it was local or regional story, but I thought that was really powerful because it shows the power of how ADUs can address affordable housing crisis, but also address where families are able, multi-generation can live under one roof. If I find that, I'll definitely share that. But I think that really made me rethink about the ADUs and how that can be a tool that we can use here locally. Thank you.
You've done a great deal of work, and we really appreciate it. I'm sure that we will call on you to do even more because success breeds success, as they say. So thank you very much for what you have done.
Thank you all.
All right? Very well done. So we have one more item before we go downstairs, but I do want to mention everyone has a Charlotte FC shirt. The goal is to put your shirt on, go downstairs, take a photo, and send it to the Tepper Sports for just the gladness of having a soccer team that's in the play-in. So if you choose to, please do so. If not, it's okay. All right, the next item that we have on our agenda is Charlotte's Arts and Culture Plan, and Priya Sikar is going to begin this. All right?
Again, thank you, Mayor, members of council. I believe, well, everybody knows Priya. She's the city's first arts and culture officer, and tonight she's going to talk to you about the city's first arts and cultural plan. I do want to, if it's okay with you, Mayor, hand it over to the Mayor Pro Tem, because a lot of work has been going on around this, and he has been a part of the discussion way back, starting in the winter of 2021, where at that time the Mayor Pro Tem Eisel and Mr. Graham, Mr. Driggs, Mr. Winston, Mr. Bakari tried to come together to figure out what's a strategy for the city to play a role in making sure that arts and culture has sustainable funding. So if it's in order, I'd like to kick it over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Jones and Mayor Lyles, for that quick setup. I'm excited for where we're at tonight in this presentation that we're about to have. There has been a lot of work that has gone into this, but I also remind us that this is sort of still the beginning. The city, pretty much forever, has never really had a policy that guides how public investment in arts and culture in the city is supposed to be done, how it will adapt and adjust over time, and how city council is supposed to interact with the arts and culture community to support the vital contribution that it makes to our city. As the manager said, I was a member of the original Arts and Culture Ad Hoc Committee, and I want to acknowledge the four or five members that are still on council. Councilmember Graham, Councilmember Driggs, Councilmember Bakari, myself, along with Mayor Pro Tem Isolt, really kind of took hold of this back in 2020 to start. You know, as I was doing some cleaning out of my office earlier today, I found some notes from September of 2019, where I, in my individual capacity, along with Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Isolt, were involved and engaged in the county's effort to secure a public funding source that was failed. For the arts and culture in 2019. And I went through some of the notes, the minutes that the county commissioners made, and the comments that they made resonated with the results that we heard during that campaign. That the arts community in particular was unhappy with the governance structure of arts funds and demanded change before approving any additional funding. And the community at large really wanted to know, it wasn't good enough just to say, hey, we're going to give public funding to the arts. They wanted a plan. They wanted to know what the intent was and how, again, their elected officials and therefore they would interact with it. So I've had the chance to review the plan, and I am pleased to see great alignment with the committee's letter, in addition to the recent policy framework that council passed in March of 2023. This includes an innovative approach to public and private partnership and collaboration, a focus on the economic development of the arts and culture industries in our city, and bringing in tourism, support for a broad spectrum of creative groups and individual artists, while maintaining support for our city-owned cultural institutions, equitable and inclusive use of city assets to encourage collaboration across the sector. I would like to thank Cindy Patterson and Kevin Patterson, no relation, for their leadership of the Arts and Culture Advisory Group over the last 2 years. It's been a dedicated bunch and a lot of passionate work that's been involved in it. I believe a flourishing arts and culture ecosystem are critical to Charlotte and really any city's future success, and I look forward to learning and hearing more. So with that, I'll turn it over to Priya, who is going to bring it home for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Mr. Jones. Good evening. It's good to be back with you all. I'm delighted to be here to be able to share with you an update on the Charlotte Arts and Culture Plan and the process to get here. So as both Mr. Jones and the Mayor Pro Tem referenced, we have been engaged in approximately for the past 18 months, a community-wide planning process to develop a comprehensive arts and culture plan to sustain and grow arts and culture in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And I'm thrilled to be able to share where we have gotten with the work of many dedicated people. Over 3,400 participants have taken part in this process to shape this community vision and the plan. And we do have dedicated members of our Arts and Culture Advisory Board here tonight, as well as of the steering group that guided this plan. And so I want to thank all of you. We have more people who were here earlier and had to head out, and also who are watching at home, I know. So thank you all for your leadership and your many, many, many volunteer hours over the past many months to get to this point. And so we are going to share with you the highlights of the planning process and of the plan itself. We want to make sure there's some time for discussion, so we will touch on a few of the priorities and key points and make sure then that we can dig into other details if you wish when we get to discussion. But the bottom line is that we have engaged in this process and developed a plan that is of, by, and for the community. And we're excited to share that with you now. So just to recap, we started the process last late spring, early summer. And we spent most of last year doing extensive qualitative and quantitative research and analysis. So this included looking at what other cities do, mapping our cultural assets here, places and spaces that people experience arts and culture. Also doing an assessment of our local funding landscape, and also extensive community engagement through many different formats in which we heard from folks across over 75 zip codes. Then in spring, you may recall we shared the results of that research and analysis in the State of Culture report. That's still available to view on the Arts and Culture Planning portion of the city's website. And those resulted in 8 emerging insights that we then were able to receive feedback from the public on, and then evolved into a shared vision that all of these folks participated in shaping, including you all. Thank you for sharing your feedback to help shape the vision and priorities and the content of the plan. We also were able to receive feedback from staff of city departments, county staff, CMS, and other partners across community. And these were folks from the public sector, private sector, from arts and culture organizations of all different disciplines, sizes, and types, as well as artists and creatives from many different artistic disciplines, as well as partners who are in other sectors such as education, health, social service, and others. So using all this information, which yielded the insights, we then developed the comprehensive vision, priorities, and then strategies and actions that make up the plan that you have received and that we will share some highlights from today. So what is the shared vision? A community where all people value, support, and thrive through arts, culture, and creativity. I won't read the philosophy statement to you. You can take that in at your own pace, but I just want to share that what really resonated throughout this year-and-a-half-long process is the recognition among people all across this community from many different walks of life about how essential arts and culture are to our community, to the vibrancy and sustainability of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And that is what you will see in the plan are many, many different ways to underscore that importance and to make sure that we can continue to have arts and culture be a vital contributor to this community's growth. So you should have some printouts because I know this text is very small, but it is also in your copy of the plan. But I'll just briefly touch on what the key priorities are. Now, these are not numbered in order of importance, but I will just briefly talk about them so that you see the main concept for each one. So Priority 1 is about ensuring sustainable and reliable funding for arts and culture through public and private partnership. That was a key theme that is throughout the Arts and Culture Plan. So this includes public sector participation in a meaningful way, as well as ongoing and increasing private sector participation. It also includes finding ways for arts and culture entities to develop sustainable business models. Priority 2 is all about governance and funding and service delivery. So this is about sustainable public-private partnership in that realm as well. And in a moment, I will talk about the proposed governance structure. So we'll come back to that in a minute or two. Moving on to number 3, this is about equitable, sustainable support for those parts of our arts and culture community and other populations within Charlotte-Mecklenburg that have been historically under-resourced and marginalized when it comes to arts and culture support. And this priority is very closely tied to priority 2 because it has specific recommendations relating to governance, funding, and service delivery. Priority 4 is about access to affordable space for the creation and experience of arts and culture. Priority 5 is about eliminating barriers to arts and culture creation and participation all across our community. Number 6 is about using marketing and communication to better promote awareness of arts and culture throughout our local community about what arts and culture offerings are available, as well as outside of Charlotte-Mecklenburg to tourists and potential visitors. Number 7 is about fostering collaboration and cooperation throughout the creative ecosystem, as well as between arts and culture and other experiences, really across the entire lifespan of a person. So this is from early childhood through the school experience, pre-K through 12, through higher ed, and also including professional development and training opportunities for folks who are interested in pursuing arts and culture and creative careers, or who are already involved in a creative career. So I'll just briefly touch on a few of these, and then we can talk further about some of the other priorities during discussion. But want to just focus on priorities 1, 2, and 3. So as I mentioned, priority 1 is about using public-private partnership, which Charlotte-Mecklenburg does so well, to ensure sustainable and reliable funding in the long term. Again, this is a 10-year plan, so what you'll see here are strategies to ensure this over the long range. And you can see that this includes both the city and county and other public sector entities playing a very meaningful role in ongoing reliable funding, but also that the private sector will continue to play a meaningful role in ongoing reliable financial support. And then other strategies here touch on ways that we can help arts and culture entities in Charlotte-Mecklenburg to become sustainable through their business models. Number 2, as I mentioned, is about governance, including funding and service delivery. And I want to take a moment to focus on this diagram, which hopefully helps illustrate the governance structure that is proposed in the plan. You also have this in a printout, which at your seat and in the plan document. This governance structure has several benefits that we as a planning team are excited about. So this leverages existing entities and assets that we have in Charlotte-Mecklenburg that are already doing work in arts and culture and leverages them in a new and innovative way that is going to be sustainable over the long term. So what you see here is at the core, there is a working group of entities, including public sector entities like the city, the county, CMS, the libraries, and private sector, as well as arts and culture organizations that are engaged in providing funding and services to the field. And senior staff from these entities would work together in a collaborative way to drive implementation of the plan, as well as iteration and evaluation of progress on the plan. They would report to an oversight committee that also has representation from the public sector, the private sector, and arts and culture sector. And then the circles that you see on the right are on the right and left, are advisory groups, very much like the task forces that developed the strategies and actions in this plan, that would focus on making sure that each priority of the plan is achieved. So they would work with the working group of entities, and they would also have connectivity to the oversight committee. And this would ensure continuity between the oversight committee, the working group, and participants out in community, all working together to make sure that the plan is achieved. One thing that is beneficial about this particular proposed governance structure is that by utilizing existing entities that we already have in this new way, it is less of a ramp-up time to transition to this governance structure from what we have currently. And it continues the momentum from the planning process right into implementation. And that there are many, many opportunities for folks across this community to continue to be involved. Because one thing that we've been able to do is have a collaborative process that's led to this plan, and we don't want to let that go. We want to keep that going as we move into implementation. One other thing I want to mention about this is that it also includes flexibility when it comes to funding. So there are opportunities for synergistic or pooled funding between different types of entities, but also entities can have independent funding for various activities that also align with the plan. So it has room for a combination of restricted and unrestricted funding, both independent and pooled funding. And so the last one I want to touch on in the presentation is, again, it's priority 3. And this is just to highlight that this is very closely linked to priority 2, which I just shared, which is about governance, funding, and service delivery. Again, wanting to make sure that the way that these resources in our community are deployed are done equitably, especially acknowledging that there are various parts of our community in the past that have not received the resources that are necessary to flourish. So just briefly, what's next? We are asking you to vote to accept the plan. We'll come back on November 13th for that step. And then we anticipate that at your direction, the staff would develop policies and other activities that are in alignment with the plan. And then, as the manager referred to earlier in the meeting, that the council would discuss funding options at the strategy meeting in a few months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you for the presentation. And I know this work has been long in the making. We've met several times on this, so I'm happy to see it come together. I just have a couple questions for you. On your governance structure slide, you mentioned that there will be 3 to 4 arts and culture organizations that will be a part of it. Can you just give us an example of who those organizations might be?
Sure. So as we think about organizations that are serving the sector and providing funds and other types of capacity building, those would be some of the types. So natural one that comes to mind is the Arts and Science Council as one of the participating working group core entities. There are other organizations as well that are providing services and support. So one could be Charlotte is Creative that's been involved in the sector and recently posted a panel on funding support. And then also other organizations that have a reach into the arts and culture sector. So the idea with this is that through multiple organizations, both arts and culture as well as public and private, those respective relationship networks can be leveraged together to actually reach a wide swath of Charlotte and Mecklenburg.
Okay, great, thank you. How does the Blumenthal Performing Arts Organization fit into this ecosystem?
Sure. So at the risk of overloading with diagrams, we did not include an ecosystem that you have seen in a previous presentation several months ago. But so the Blumenthal fits into the ecosystem in a few ways. So a couple of ways. One is that, of course, Blumenthal operates city-owned facilities, which, as Mayor Pro Tem referenced in the plan, is included in terms of sustainable funding, because we want to make sure the city-owned facilities are operating sustainably and effectively, and also that the operations within that are operating sustainably and effectively. So in that sense, the Blumenthal fits in as an organization that is a presenting organization, presenting touring performances, but also collaborating with local artists and groups that are presenting work in these spaces that Blumenthal does. And then Blumenthal also does its own programming, such as the Charlotte International Arts Festival that took place recently. So the Blumenthal would be one of the organizations that could participate in the governance structure potentially. But it is to be determined how organizations would and which organizations would participate. And then funding, on a funding level, there are some different options for how an organization like Blumenthal Performing Arts could receive funding. So as I mentioned, this allows for there to be both restricted dollars that could go to Blumenthal or to the city-owned facilities and operations of that, or there might be other types of funding that happen through other participating entities, whether those are independent or synergistic pooled funds that could go to an organization like Blumenthal.
So it's a bit of a loaded question because I'm on the board of the Blumenthal. So I wanted to make sure that the organization is enthralled in the plan. And then my last question is, we're about to embark on standing up an incredible main library just a few blocks away. And I'm very interested in how, I see you have the library there, but in other cities, major cities, the arts are very much infused in the main public library. And I just want us to be very mindful of that as we think about how the city of Charlotte plays a role in the new library and how we can play a role and have a thumbprint on the arts within that new space.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Sircar, I think it's fair to say I got a little cranky when we were talking offline about this. I apologize for that.
Thanks.
I realize that the work you have done is in response to inputs you received from the council. So I'll address myself to the council. A concern I have about the plan as it manifests itself right now is based on the history leading up to the formation of the plan, to the city's decision to commit resources, to the private sector's decision to commit resources, was a perception that private funding for the arts had pretty much dried up. And therefore, there was a need for us to step up. One of the motivations for us to do that was the fact that some of our legacy organizations were starving for funds, and their existence was threatened. And in my mind, that was pretty key. I believe that those organizations and their tradition of acknowledging historical European culture, I'll call it, is one of the things that marks Charlotte as a world-class city. I think the way we are perceived by other cities in this country and elsewhere is influenced by productions of notable works by historically famous artists. So I was disappointed when I saw in the plan that there was hardly any acknowledgement of those institutions that I could identify. No explicit acknowledgement. And then I think one of the things that set me off a little bit was then in a slide I saw it said that we would help fund these and ensure that they had equitable programming or something like that. And my feeling is that although our investment in the arts should further our social priorities, it is an arts program first, and it's a social program second. And that means that the scope of goals that we have for this public investment include things like economic development, include service to all sectors of the Charlotte economy, and also include the items that are in the plan. So I'm not excluding anything like that. I just felt that the presentation of the plan was kind of one-sided to the extent of minimizing what I think is a critical component, and in fact is something that's likely to take up a lot of the capacity we have for investment. I know that the private partners that we had during a 3-year period in which there was a total of investment of $36 million or $40 million in the arts had a particular concern also about legacy organizations. So I would just like to see them properly acknowledged as a goal of ours, that we will ensure the stability of those major institutions where the city owns the facilities, and given the importance that they have in how we are perceived culturally, not taking anything away from the grassroots and diversity and other goals articulated in the plan. So that's my comment. Ms. Zirkon, my question to you is, when we talked, you talked about a next step. Could you explain that a little bit for all of us here?
Sure. So the next steps, yes. The next steps, I added a bullet point after our last conversation, as we see it, are that following the November 13th meeting, where we would be asking for council to vote to accept the plan, and in fact, we can start to work on these things even sooner, but that the staff would develop a framework for policy and practices that align with the plan. And then, as the manager mentioned a little bit ago, the thought is that council would take up these conversations at the annual strategy meeting.
Just one more follow-up then. So we have a budget process that starts soon. What will our reference be as far as the arts are concerned when we decide about allocations of public money to the arts?
So Priya, you've done such a great job. Why don't you let me take that one? Okay. So,
all right.
Okay. So, Mr. Driggs, I think I'm going to steal this from the Mayor Pro Tem in a agenda review today. If we look at this as a three-legged stool, that even back in 2019, when there was this big concern about funding drying up for these institutions, arts and culture. One leg being the city with that $3.5 million, and I think we got it up to $4 million. The county put money into it also, and then there was fundraising by the ASC, and the philanthropic community puts money in. I look at this plan, which I believe is an excellent plan, and thank you for all your work, is still having that three-legged stool, and there could be a lane that the city wants to invest in more so than, let's say, maybe the county or the private sector. And what we've heard over and over and over again is that this is an economic development opportunity for the city. So as we start to think about what may be restricted, and Priya did a great job talking about restricted funds, and if you go back in time, a lot, and I hate to do it this way, but the county had a lot of restricted funds, and it went to culture block. So the city could decide that they would like to have restricted funds that are maybe going more so to the legacy organizations or the 38 organizations. And then there are pooled funds. And the pooled funds, if you go back to that, the structure could be decided by a bigger group, and it's based on priorities for all of the organizations or entities that are putting money into the pool fund. So in the next steps, having this annual strategy meeting in January, this would be one of those opportunities as we tee it up for budget discussions. It's what's a funding source, how much is the funding source, and how would you like the dollars to be targeted?
So that will be going on during our budget process and in our budget process. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Priya.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a perfect transition because I had a follow-up to Mr. Driggs' question. So adopting this, what we have in front of us, it does not preclude us from supporting and from supporting legacy organizations. Is that what that's what I heard, correct?
Correct, and you will be receiving the report, accepting the report.
Got it. So I think we are all on the same page here, where ultimately the council will still get an opportunity to discuss the funding, and the council can decide, to Ms. Anderson's point about Blue Mantle, I think that falls under our legacy organization. And to Mr. Drake's point about other legacy organization, while we continue to support historically marginalized organizations and artists. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to recognize many members of Arts Commission who put in so much time and effort into this, especially my good friend Shefali Patel. She's also known as Cultural Connection Queen. And I see Alan Barber here and Tim Miner, who was here. They have just put in so much work into this. I see them almost at every cultural event, and this is voluntary effort that they've put in. They put in time and effort into this. They provide a lot of their cultural knowledge, artist knowledge, absolutely with no expectation in return. So I appreciate the work that's gone into that, and Priya, certainly great job. I will have more questions as we discuss the funding, but for now, I'm good with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. And again, I would just, Mr. Jones brought up the idea of the three-legged stool. I think we should all kind of remember that what this is we're defining what our leg of the stool is here. And that didn't exist before. The way we looked at our investments and our priorities for arts and culture in the past was to basically cut a check. And if you look through the strategies and priorities and recommendations, this provides a way that is bigger than any one or group of organizations that exist, that isn't just focused on a certain medium of art and culture, but it creates kind of a wave finder for the city to exist as it grows, as we are presented with different opportunities, as we identify our strengths and our weaknesses. If you look in here, one of the things that was pretty cool to me, that it touches on the need for MFA programs and Bachelors of Fine Arts programs in and around the city. So those are just things that we weren't thinking of. We didn't have policy around, and we didn't have any type of framework that would lead to any policy. So we are really defining that leg of our stool, and this provides something we can go to those other partners, whether they be governments or non-governmental organizations, to say how we can all tap in and we can supplement and complement each other to support this important part of a city and community. Thank you.
Ms. Watlington?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the plan that we were able to peruse through. I am looking forward to, I think, along the lines of what the manager was talking about, as we think about what the city is willing to invest in and what our approach becomes beyond what's existing here. I'm most interested in how we really create or help enable the creation of revenue-generating sources for arts and culture. One of the things that really piqued my interest at the beginning of this conversation was about how do we invest in a true economic development ecosystem. So I look forward to having those details. I'm not quite sure where that sits within these priorities, but I do hope that we can have those conversations, or if you'd like to speak to it, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, because at the end of the day, we can continue to try to invest in arts, and certainly we will continue in some capacity, but if the fundamental challenge or opportunity was that we needed to help create a sustainable source, that's really about generating revenue through the arts.
So I totally agree with you, Councilmember Wallington, and that's a part of the policy discussion that we'll have with you about how we're able to enable this revenue generation to occur. So that would be a part of the next few months.
Awesome. And you said the next few months. The last thing I'll say is I want to make sure I'm clear. I see winter 2023 through 2024. Am I to expect that it's going to take 14 months to move to the next
No,
one?
no. That really means January.
Okay. Thank you.
December, January.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I think that that covers the questions on our arts and culture presentation. I can't imagine what the retreat or the review will be if we cover arts and culture, NES, budget. It's going to be a challenge, so I hope everybody's ready for it. We're going to be ready for that. So with that, I think that we don't, Mr. Jones, do we have anything before we go downstairs? So for those of you that just came in, we have the Charlotte soccer team, and we want to try to push them off because they are going to New York to play in the play-in game. And so I thought that if you don't want to put your shirt on, hold it up, and we'll take a picture and send it to Christy at Tepper Sports.
Well, I like purple.
I know, I figured that. I figured that. thank you so much for allowing us to take a moment to celebrate the Charlotte FC with a big shout out to our team by sending them some cheering on by the Charlotte City Council, for their impressive win of 1-0 over Inter Miami and making it to the playoffs. So let's all hope that when they get into New York, the Red Bulls this Wednesday, that they have the best of luck and we actually are able to celebrate another game. So thank you very much. Today, we were just upstairs and we were talking about two major programs that we have that are coming up in the future. One was our Charlotte Nest, which is talking about how do we make sure that we can work with people to stay in their homes, and then the second one was how do we continue to have arts as a core inside of our values and the work that we're doing. So now we're ready to call the business meeting to order. I want to say thank you to those that are joining us in the chamber. Welcome to you, and we are grateful that we have others that may be watching on the city's TV station or program or whatever, and anyone else that's getting accessing us by the internet. So let's begin with introductions, and I will start with our city clerk.
Billy Tons, Deputy City Clerk.
Good evening, Dimple Ajmera, and welcome.
Good evening, Marjorie Molina, District 5.
Good evening, everyone. James Mitchell at large.
Good evening, Renee Johnson, and I'm honored to represent District 4.
Good evening, all. Lawana Mayfield, council member at large.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Vi Lyles, Mayor.
Braxton Winston, Mayor Pro Tem.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Tara Picard, District 6.
Good evening, Dante Anderson, District 1.
Good evening, Victoria Watlington, District 3.
Patrick Baker, City Attorney.
Okay, so when we have our meeting, we begin with an expression of inspiration followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and the invocation or words that we have of meaning is intended to solemnize our proceedings. And we celebrate that we have diversity of opinion and thought and faith in our community, including those that have no religious faith. And tonight, I will give, I believe, is it mine? Mine. Ms. Mayfield, thank you very much. Ms. Mayfield will give our invocation. We will then follow this invocation with a pledge of allegiance to the flag, and please join us if you choose.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For those who choose to join me, you can bow and close your eyes. For others, I just ask for you to open your hearts. As we gather here today, let us reflect on our shared commitment to the well-being of our community. May our decisions be guided by reason, compassion, and the pursuit of justice. In the spirit of unity, let us work together to make our city a better place for all. Dear Heavenly Father, we humbly ask for your guidance and wisdom as we convene to make decisions that impact our city and its residents. May our actions be just and fair, and may we always seek the well-being of all our citizens. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right, we begin with our recognition of significant events in our community, and now I would like to ask Mayor Pro Tem to address an award, on a proclamation recognizing an award in the day.
Whereas annually, the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and culture organizations, including the Arts and Science Council, the City of Charlotte's local art agency, and by communities, cities, and states across the country for 30 years. And whereas the arts and humanities help community members explore their diverse history and culture with the support and creativity of large, mid-sized, and small cultural organizations, creative individuals, educational institutions, and local businesses. And whereas despite significant losses to the coronavirus pandemic, the creative industries remain among the most vital sectors of the American economy, providing opportunities for development and creating jobs and economic activity across sectors. And whereas the Charlotte-Mecklenburg nonprofit arts industry strengthens our local economy by generating $243 million in total economic activity annually, $21.6 million in state and local government revenue, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 7,600 jobs, of which I have about 3 or 4. Yeah. Whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind and play a unique role in the lives of our families and our community. Now therefore, she, via Alexander Lyles, Mayor of Charlotte, do hereby proclaim October as National Arts and Humanities Month in Charlotte, North Carolina, and call upon our community members to celebrate arts and culture and join in this special observance.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Madam Clerk, I have a 3:45 timestamp on this, and we'll start. So today, we're going to begin with our public comment that we have from the community. It's a public forum, and what we do is we ask you to have no more than 3 minutes when you speak with us to petition whatever you need to have us hear. And as a result of your presentation, the manager and the staff will follow up with this immediately following this week. So with that, I'm going to begin with our first speaker of the evening. We have 14 speakers, and our first speaker is Kiraz Gandhi. Are you here? 2 minutes each. All right, but I do not see Mr. Gandhi. All right, our next speaker is Melissa Swanson. Ms. Swanson? And then following Ms. Swanson is Ann Joseph. Ms. Joseph, please feel free, come down, be careful on the steps, and come down to this podium here. Yes, please, Ms. Swanson.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm a local real estate investor and landlord. I manage my own properties that span from Thomasboro to Hidden Valley. I come to you tonight in regard to the lack of accountability of the City of Charlotte to hold landlords and property owners to the laws set forth by zoning and compliance. Current day, my low-income multifamily homes in District 1 are next door to a neglected trailer park full of trash, long weeds, and unkept grounds. Also current day, my commercial building in District 2 on Bradford Drive now has to be neighbors with a funeral home and crematory that moved into an old storage warehouse and began operating without proper plan review, permits, or a CO. On the other side of Thomasboro Elementary is a gaming business disguised as a coffee shop, and across the street is another garbage-infested strip mall that is still half boarded up from a fire 3 years ago. This strip mall still continues to operate in its dilapidated state. Numerous outreaches to 311 and our district council persons have done nothing to hold property owners and commercial tenants accountable. Fines and consequences are not implemented, and these businesses and individuals are getting away with it, leaving responsible owners, like myself, who went through proper CO channels, wanting to throw my hands up and sell everything because attaining and retaining solid and reputable tenants in the commercial space is nearly impossible due solely to the visual surroundings. On the residential side, I'm a landlord to Roof Above and Livian in conjunction with Freedom Fighting Ministries and VA VASH, as well as the Harvest Center. I'm happy to share with you my experiences of drug use, prostitution, unauthorized tenants, strip poles being built in my homes, and shower and bathroom time being sold to homeless folks. I strongly suggest you insist Freedom Fighters has a trained liaison or counselor on site.
Ms. Swanson. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that we've got the gist of this, and I'm going to ask Assistant City Manager to meet with you. Sean, would you handle this?
Thank you.
And follow up, and if you have additional remarks, make sure that he gets those and addresses and things like that. So thank you very much. Ms. Joseph,
Good evening,
good evening.
Mayor Lyles and everybody on this board. My name is Ms. Ann Joseph, and I don't have a formal thing put together, but I'm going to speak from the heart, something that really disturbs me. It's two things. One, I am a city bus operator. I'm new, fairly new on the job. I'm fairly new in Charlotte altogether. And one of the situations that disturbs me, and I did try to bring it to my job, but they have no policy in place. So I come here seeking if there's some kind of help or direction you could put me in to get this help. So I was on the bus going to my lunch. I was not driving at this time, but going to the South Tryon garage for lunch. And while on the bus, there was an elderly man that had an incident on himself. He urinated on himself in the bus, and everybody was upset and, didn't really care about the old man. I told people, look, he's the elderly, and he couldn't, contain himself. So the bus driver had to put the bus out of service, and I was able to flag down another bus because I work for the company. I'm in uniform. And before I left, all I could see was his eyes saying, "Thank you, but I gotta get home." I said, "Don't worry, they'll get you home," being naive and not knowing that this was not the case. 3.5 hours later, I'm driving my own bus on my own route, and I see this elderly man I think it was at Tremont that we were put off the bus so they could get a new bus. He walked 3 hours. This man looked like he's in his 80s. And all I could think was, what if it was inclement weather? What if, at my company, if you hit the bus mirror, you have to take a report. The police is called, there's an accident report. So I just need something to be done for a human being. I don't want to wait till someone I know and love this happens to.
Thank you very much. It is, thank you for sharing that story and understanding that people that are important. So I'm going to ask Ms. Liz Babson if she would speak with you and follow up on the story. And it might take a little bit more work, but please know that you have touched us as well with your words.
I
Thank
have
you.
one more thing. I think I have a minute.
I'm sorry, we can't allow it. We have to have the.
My 3
but
minutes is up?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Our next speaker is Sierra Masilik and then Stephen Henry. So could you both come down? There are two podiums.
2 minutes. I want to let them know that, just in case they're expecting 3.
Say it 3.
All right, it's 2 minutes. So you have two.
It's two, right?
At the beginning, are we changing it?
It's two, correct?
2 minutes.
She's been doing 2 minutes.
If it's over 10 speakers, it goes to
It's
2
2
minutes.
minutes. So you have 2 minutes for speaking, and I think that the clerk explained that. I made the mistake. My apologies. I did not realize the number, so it's 2 minutes. And I think that you're nodding, so you know this because
Yes.
you've been here before.
We've been
so
here a
thank
couple
you very
times.
much. All right, thank you.
Okay. I'm Sierra, a volunteer and foster for Charmec Animal Care and Control. While I believe all the matters brought to this public forum are important, I just want to emphasize the magnitude of the situation. Animals are dying every day. 5 animals a day were euthanized in September. That's 152 dogs and cats in 1 month. So that means every time we get up here talking about the same thing, know that a couple other 100 animals have been euthanized due to the issues we're addressing. I invite all of you to come to the shelter. Any of us volunteers would be happy for you to accompany us. Come see the loving, deserving, resilient animals that they are, the connection you will undoubtedly make with them. Maybe you will understand the gut-wrenching, heart-dropping feeling that we get when we receive the 3rd email of the month begging for help as ACC is completely out of kennel space and hard decisions will need to be made. I've fostered for years, but I've always taken a break when I needed to. Yet, I've had a foster in my home nonstop since the beginning of May, because every time I tell myself I'm gonna take a break once one is adopted, I get another email about 0 space. I'm tired.
We are all tired. Mayor Lyles, I understand you've informed some of us speakers that there's additional budget trying to be fast-tracked for ACC in 2024. And although this is an awesome start, this is a Band-Aid. This is not a solution to the bigger problems that lie. Kennel numbers haven't changed at the shelter in the past 20 years, yet the Charlotte population has almost doubled. That means that almost double more dogs and cats. Y'all do the math. Where are they going? We need a bigger shelter to account for the influx in population. The shelter needs more staff to care for the number of animals they now have. We need more resources and less bureaucracy to put some of the plans ACC has into action that will involve community outreach to stop the problem at its source and likely lessen the intake of animals. It cannot happen while being nested under the police department. The shelter needs its own city department in order to change the welfare in our city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Henry?
Good evening. I'm here to ask the City Council to reinstate the ordinances against public urination, public defecation, and the consumption of alcohol in public. Two stories to highlight the need for these ordinances. First occurred several months ago. I was walking from my home to Alexander Michael's restaurant, 2 doors down. Along the way, I came across a gentleman who was urinating on the side of Alexander Michael's, as well as carrying an open container of beer. As I passed him, I asked him, "What on God's green earth do you think you're doing?" He responded in some sort of incoherent gibberish. I responded, and the situation began to escalate. Thankfully, my wife was with me and reminded me that I had my 4-month-old daughter strapped to my chest, and arguing with a gentleman who's clearly inebriated and urinating on the side of a building is clearly not a great idea. The second instance occurred more recently. There's a gentleman who drinks regularly in the early morning hours in 4th Ward Park. By late afternoon, he is quite inebriated. Lest the City Council imagine this gentleman to be homeless, he has a regular rotating wardrobe of designer clothes. On this particular occurrence, he was standing across from where the children play on the swing set, and I heard him audibly yell at a young African-American boy, no older than 10, that if he didn't shut the F up, he was going to come over there and punch him in the effing face. In both instances, I called the cops. And in both instances, officers would have benefited from having these ordinances and the discretion to police this sort of uncivil behavior. Please reinstate these ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. That is certainly under consideration. All right, the next speaker is Gary Marion, followed by Mike Finessis.
For over 3 years, my neighbors have assaulted me, harassed me, threatened me, abused me, filed malicious charges against me. The damage that has been inflicted upon me is insurmountable. Over 3 years of abuse. To me, the worst thing than death is betrayal. Malcolm X said that. Mayor Lyles, personally, I've asked you, Chief Jennings, to meet with me 3 times. You guys voted on the traffic calming policy because of me back in 2018. I did that. You got the credit, but I did it. Then you voted to get rid of it. Over 20 calls to 911, 10 police reports, multiple pleas for help, numerous emails to the mayor and Chief Jennings. It took 22 months for the police to finally send a community service officer. That's when the harassment stopped. Started turning into other things. Filing sexual harassment, no contact orders. Right to the left of me, right to the right of me. I stay at my girl's house, my queen's house rather, 2 nights a week. I hope you all can sleep at night. I've asked you 3 times, Mayor, through the emails. Some of y'all got them. Who's got the leadership skills around here? Loyalty, empathy, accountability, duty and determination, energy and encouragement, respect, selflessness, honorable and humble, integrity and innovation, passion for and pride in work. I just got back today from Camp Lejeune. My unit was in the Beirut bombing. Today's my birthday, the same day as the anniversary of the bombing. It invigorated me, but I'm suffering. I hope you can sleep at night.
Mr. Marion, Let's see if we can have someone on the staff follow up.
Done. 3 years. 3 years, Mayor.
Okay.
You spoke at the breakfast
Mr.
forum,
Mr.
Tuesday morning forum. You
Mr.
said some
Garrett.
stuff. I got it on
Mr.
Facebook.
Marion.
You don't even make sense when you talk. You should resign.
All right, Mr.
I'll take care.
Mike Finesses.
Honorable City Council, Madam Mayor, Manager Jones. My name is Mike Fenice, and I am the Secretary of Charlotte Firefighters Association, Local 660. I come before you with members of UE 150 and Local 660 to ask you to pass the Worker Bill of Rights. We have come together to not only represent our members, but all city workers for the basic rights we should have as employees of this great city. A Bill of Rights is not new to the state of North Carolina or municipalities in this state. Just down the road, in Durham, City Council passed a Worker Bill of Rights for its workers. The adoption of a Bill of Rights is well under your privy and of City Council and is at no cost to the city. As you know, under the Charter, Article 2, Section 4.5, you have this ability. This gives you the ability to pass a Worker Bill of Rights. Some basic rights that we should have and are addressed under the Worker Bill of Rights for the employees to know if they are under investigation and what for, to make audio recordings of any questioning while being investigated, to have representation of the employees choosing, including union representation, union access to new hire orientation. I think we can all agree that the hard work for all these city employees make this great city operate each and every day. Basic worker rights for these workers should be given. The Bill of Rights is not a contract and therefore is not illegal and can and should be voted on by you, the City Council. In closing, council members, Ms. Mayor and Mr. Jones, please take the time to read this Worker Bill of Rights. If you or your staff has any questions, please reach out to Local 660 or UE 150. These two unions have just started working together on issues that affect city workers, and we are excited about what can happen working together with you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Robert Davis, followed by Ms. Otley. Do you see Cass? Okay. So following Mr. Davis, Ms. Otley could come down to the other side of the podium, or Mr. Davis, thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I'd like to shed a little light on the Worker Bill of Rights that my counterpart here just shared with you. It is indeed a collaborative effort between our two unions, and we hope that by displaying this, you understand the gravity of the situation. We are concerned about our members. We're concerned about our fellow city employees. And this Worker Bill of Rights, it's about job security. I could share with you the last effort we placed in one of our members who was terminated. He was out of work for about 3 months, and some of our employees saw him on Statesville Avenue asking for change. He was fighting cancer. He just buried a brother, I believe it was, and was also taking care of his elderly mother. We won that fight for him. He was reinstated to his department, but he was given no back pay. So those are the types of things we want to try and avoid with this Workers' Bill of Rights. That gentleman was employed in his department for 17 years. He should not have been fired. It was improperly done. We need to face these matters head on. We are going to work together collaboratively from here on out to make sure that every city employee has a fair and equal treatment before they are terminated. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Otley, and then Ms. Otley will be followed by Mr. Harris.
Good evening, Mayor, City Manager, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. I have had the pleasure of working with the Charlotte City Workers for the last 2 years. I have met so many individuals that have worked so hard for the city, but I've also watched a lot of them, like Mr. Davis said, be terminated unjustly and not understand the process and not know how to navigate the system. Some of these workers don't even know how to present their argument in a room because they are outnumbered. There are 5 to 6 individuals that work for the city in the room while this worker is in the room by themselves. That is a very unfair situation. What we're asking for is a civil service board so that everyone has a fair shake, everyone has a voice at the table. We have all these tourists and all these events here, you know, are represented fairly, that their voice is heard. All they want is fairness across the board. I don't think that is too much to ask. If we talk about this city and equity and, you know, inclusion and being a cutting-edge city, we need to make that decision and make a civil service board for all city workers. It's not going to cost the city a dime to do that, but it's going to show that we have integrity, accountability for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dominique Harris, followed by Grayson Hanson.
All right, I'd like to say good night to everybody. Well, not good night, but hello to everybody. Good to see everybody. And just to let you know that the city of Charlotte has some great managers up and down. I mean, it has some great supervisors, some awesome supervisors, guys that'll look out for you, women that'll look out for you, just all around good people. But they also got some snakes too. And I'm just letting you know that these snakes done got into this business and they done did things to employees that should have kept their job, that should have been here for years and years, contributing to this city, and they done put them out the door. Now, we was able to fight and get a lot of jobs back, but some of those guys just weren't able to keep holding on. Now, we got to do something about this situation. Now, the Workers' Bill of Rights is a good step towards that direction. It's going to address a lot of our issues. I think if you guys sit down, read it, look at it, you know, understand what we're asking from, understand where we're coming from with everything that we're saying, and work on it with us, because I don't believe it covers everything that it needs to cover, but we can go a few steps further to make sure it's right. And right for all city workers, not just some people in some department. But like I say, you can't have situations where a manager is holding a grudge against an employee for something that happened when they were both in the field together, and then when the time comes for him to be able to lord that situation over and put him straight out the door. We can't have that. On the same token, we can't have an employee that's been taking advantage of the system continue to do that because he has a buddy that's in a higher position than he is. We can't just keep having these situations over and over again without them being addressed by something that's put down on paper that everybody can understand and use moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson? Yes. Yes, followed by Bart Nonan. All right.
All right, hello, my name is Grayson Hanson. Today I would like to talk to you about public transit, specifically our buses and our bike lanes. Charlotte has been labeled recently as one of the worst cities for public transit. And in one of my history classes, I was learning about food and food deserts. And there were low-income families who would have to set aside actual days instead of like a couple of hours to go get groceries, because they would be using the buses system and it would take them 4 hours to just get one bus ride, when then they go do an activity that takes 30 minutes and then they have to wait another 4 hours for buses home, and sometimes those buses don't even come. And then there are employees who have to use the bus system to go to work, and the infrequency of the buses impacts the time in which they arrive to work and overall the reliability of them getting to work. And sometimes if the buses don't come, they can't go to work that day. Overall, I think it's very important that we do look into our buses and look into creating a more frequent and reliable busing system for lower income people, because some people don't have cars and they can't be consistently at work or set aside a couple of hours always to go get groceries or do go to the doctor. So that's what I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hanson. We want buses to be available for everyone. We don't want as many cars on the road as we have, and we just want to figure this out. So thank you very much for your comments and advocacy. Mr. Noonan?
Yeah, good evening, City Council. I believe everyone knows and received an email that I sent out a few weeks back concerning the ongoing gun violence in Little Rock Apartments, so I don't need to get into that. These families are still prisoners in their own home. I've been the executive director and founder of West Boulevard Ministry. We've been on the ground, boots on the ground, in the ditch for 7+ years. We know what's going on, and we know what's not going on within the communities throughout the West Boulevard corridor. In Livian, who has come step forward, and now they are managing Little Rock Apartments. They have made some progress, but it's not enough, because we're going to have violence that stirs back up in no time. We have to make sure we have a plan of action that's going to be consistent moving forward, because these families, like I said, are prisoners in their own homes. The children, you go by Little Rock Apartments, at any point in time, the children are not outside playing. They thrive at our facility because we pick them up and we bring them to our facility. But when we have to take them home and they have to dip underneath police tape because there's automatic weapons being shot, and they're supposed to go home and get a good night's rest and go to school the next morning, that's not happening. That's not okay in Charlotte or anywhere else in this country. That's all I got to say about that. So my question to you is, who on the city council is going to step up, meet with us, not so much because the residents, I can get some residents together, but they're scared. But so I'm asking the city council, who out here is willing to sit down and get a form of action, get a plan together within Livian moving forward? Who can commit right now?
I think, Mr. Noonan, that all of us...
Thank you, Tarek. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
I think that we do need to have a meeting.
Deeper
We
discussions.
need to have in Livian and you to be a part of it. And so we'll work on doing that. I think that we have a committee that we look at for community safety, and this is really an important part of our community. Plus, it's in one of the districts along our corridors that we're trying to address. So give us a moment to figure out when and how, but I remember your emails.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I remember that Livian has said that they are in better shape. I don't know what that means, and I think what you're asking us to do is determine what shape that is.
Well, making progress, but we want to continue to move the ball down the field and have a course of action.
I understand. So thank you. We will be getting back to you on that, and we'll be working with Livian to make sure that, as well as the district, are
And I will add this, I've had people that reach out to me from other properties that Livian manages, so it's just not Little Rock Apartments.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, I think that we have another speaker, Jimmy Burke, as well as LaToya Owens. Mr. Burke and Ms. Owens. Let's see. And is Ms. Owens here? Ms. Owens, okay. Mr. Burke, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good evening, and I do appreciate this opportunity. I have been a cat volunteer at the animal shelter since 2017. Until 18 months ago, most cat volunteers spent our time socializing the animals, helping them be ready for adoption. For the last year and a half, due to shortfalls in staff and an overabundance of animals flowing into the shelter, cat volunteers spend the majority of our time cleaning kennels. Kennel maintenance is critically important as part of the shelter's standard of care. Equally important is the amount of time available to socialize cats in order to make them more viable for adoption. Every day, every animal in the shelter must be fed, every kennel must be cleaned, and this responsibility falls on the kennel attendants and any volunteers that choose to help. The majority of these kennels must be cleaned and these animals must be fed by 11 o'clock every day when the shelter opens to the public. On a typical day, 176 dogs, up to 49 cats, and any number of various other species of animals are housed at the shelter. These are staggering numbers for 2 kennel attendants to manage. The first shift kennel attendant number is typically 2. So if no volunteers are available, 2 attendants have to handle upwards of almost 225 animals. As a result of this shortage, a recent situation left 20 cats, 20 kittens all day. No fresh food, no fresh water, no clean kennel. Adding more kennel attendants will allow for the basic care of feeding and kennel cleaning according to shelter management. Every department, not just kennel attendants at Animal Care and Control, is understaffed. A number of you have visited the shelter and you've seen firsthand that the structure is terribly outdated, particularly for a city our size with the continued rapid growth. The current state of the shelter leaves us and the animals in a terrible state. Please do all you can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Burke.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you for coming down. That is the end of our public forum. Thank you all that participated, and hopefully you will have, those that have follow-up will have follow-up sometime early this week. All right, so the next item on our agenda is public comment on Chapter 14 ordinance revisions. And so we're going to open this for public comment. And it is item number 8, and we do have a speaker. So we have a speaker, and so I'd like to ask if there are any other speakers, Madam Clerk, just one. Could Mr. James Krause, please join us at the podium? And this is public comments on the ordinance revision.
Hey, my name is James Krause, and I've been hit while I've been on my bicycle by a car. And my friend was just hit this week on a bike by a car. And when I saw this on the agenda, I just knew I had to come speak about the importance of increasing the fines for parking in the bike lane. Just this week, when we were biking around, we had to come in and out of the bike lane because there were cars parked there. And the fine was $25 for parking in there, but none of the cars had fines on them. They were all just parking there for free. I really hope we can get more enforcement of these rules, not just increasing the fines, but also get more enforcement of that. Hopefully that goes towards maybe better bike lanes, separated bike lanes, less dangerous situations. But I know that we're going in the right direction with this, but I just hope that we can keep going and prevent accidents like mine that I walked away from, or my friends who she went in an ambulance, and we can make Charlotte a safer city to live in.
All right, thank you. For those that are viewing this, the ordinance which we're asking for comments tonight is proposed revisions to Chapter 14, which will provide clarification to terms changing trucks to vehicles, changing drive or to drive, stop, stand, or park, and add the Americans with Disabilities Standards to exceptions to align the definitions with the North Carolina General Statutes and the Unified Development Ordinance. And then on the following terms for commercial vehicles, light, medium, and large, plug-in electric vehicles, and public bike paths. So thank you. We will include this in our next deliberation. And then adding illegal parking provisions for the categories of public bike paths, streetcar right-of-way, electric vehicle space, and loading zones. The fines will increase from if adopted, would increase from $25 to $100 for blocking intersections, parking on sidewalks, parking in a bike lane, illegal parking on a streetcar right-of-way, and illegal commercial vehicle parking. And so is there any other public comment?
Move to approve. Move to close the public comment.
It's to move to approve the closing of the public comment period.
Yes.
Is there a second? And we have a second. All in favor of closing, raise your hands. That's unanimous. All right, the next item is a public hearing on pro-housing grant application. The action is to conduct a public hearing regarding the City of Charlotte's application to the pathways to removing obstacles to housing programs. Do we have any speakers, Madam Clerk, on this item? We have no space. We have a motion to close the public. I want to make sure this is not a public hearing, it is a public comment. So there's a difference there that we have to follow.
Public hearing.
The agenda says this one is a hearing.
It says under the
Is this one a public hearing?
It says hearing.
Or a public comment? I know it says public hearing on both.
Number 8 was a public comment.
It was public comment. It was
Now
not
it's a public
advertised as a
hearing.
public hearing. So, with that, we now go to the city manager's report.
Excuse me, clarification.
Yeah.
What's the difference between public comment and public hearing?
All right,
Just
Mr.
asked
Baker.
that question.
Second
So
guy.
public comment is oftentimes you just want to hear from the public. Public hearing is a statutory process which requires you to open the public hearing and close the public hearing. Practically, it's going to feel like the same thing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Well, we didn't have a public hearing. We had a public comment. I'm sorry,
We
but
did.
it is a more informal
number 8
process that, you know, it is that, so.
Number 9, we have a public hearing.
Number 9 is a hearing.
No, it's,
Talking about number 8,
8, we didn't have a hearing,
right. We just had public comment, that's what the
so we didn't have to
confusion
close
is.
it.
but the
Yeah, we
second
just
one,
moved on.
Yeah.
It ended and we moved on. There's no close.
No, I guess.
Mr. Baker, on item 9, I know that the agenda said this, and I want to say this because when we had agenda review today, and we were talking about whether or not there's formal action or informal action, my understanding was that both of these were informal actions where council chooses to hear from the public versus the law saying you're required to have a public hearing. So a hearing is a requirement. So if I misunderstood what we did this afternoon, but comment is where we have the ability to ask for comment, but requirements can be different. So with that, I'm just making sure, I know 8 was a comment. I want to make sure 9 is a comment as well, Mr. Baker?
I'm not sure if staff has a,
Right, 9 is.
It is 9 is the city is preparing a federal grant application for pathways to removing obstacles to housing, a competitive grant program offered by the United States. I don't think.
Yes, ma'am. And one of the requirements to applying for the grant is to hold a public hearing. So it is
okay.
required.
So we're
have a
gonna say
formal-
that-
And we did advertise it and are conducting a formal hearing.
All right, so we need a motion to close public hearing on item number 9.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, second, all right, all in favor, please raise your hands.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you.
I don't think, is everyone still confused like me or just me? It could be Monday night, could just be me. But when you look at type, we put both of these on the public hearing item. And so we have a new category, and one should say public comment, and the other one should say public hearing. So
Yes, sir. Or we could put the comment sections under your policy because it's more, you're getting feedback usually on a policy. That's just the system, how it's set up, but we could definitely look at adding a new category for that.
So are we going to use public comments going forward?
So, yes, sir, and that's at your discretion, whereas a public hearing is required. So there's certain ordinances that require it, there's certain that don't, and there's certain things that you do that you have to formally do a public hearing, like the budget. You have to formally post a notice that you're going to conduct a public hearing, and then formally open it and formally close it. But when you're doing comment, that's at your discretion. You're just wanting to give another avenue to get more input.
So does the citizens know the difference between public comment and public hearing?
To them, it really shouldn't matter because
Okay.
they're both giving input. You're opening up another avenue for them to give you input in the meeting when you do comment.
Thank you for educating us, because I didn't.
Same rules, whether by hearing or comment for the
right.
citizen talking. But you're right, it's a difference, and we talked about this afternoon, and I did not know, but I can see the value in saying, I want to hear from the public, and that's not, even when it's not required. So I think that's the way that we've looked at it and positioned it.
Let's just level set. So there's a public forum that we can hear from citizens.
Yes.
and there's a public comment that we can hear from citizens.
On a topic, you would choose a specific topic for them to speak to.
Okay,
So
so we
a
got two
public-
avenues for the citizens to get input from our citizens, public comment and public forum.
Right, in the public hearing, well, public forum, I'm sorry, yes. So anyone can always sign up. If it's something to vote on, they can always sign up. Even if it's not a public forum, they can sign up to speak on that item unless there's been a formal public hearing. So if we've given you, so the budget, we've given we've had community input sessions, we held a formal publicized public hearing, and then we've closed it. Then the night you're actually voting on the budget, they can't come and sign up on the budget then, because we've already had a public.
So
But
we got.
anything else that's for vote that you hadn't had a formal public hearing on, like tonight, there was a speaker on social districts that had
Correct.
signed up, I think, earlier.
Right.
Well, that was okay, because it wasn't a public hearing you had at your last meeting. It was a public comment opportunity.
Wow. So they got three alternatives.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure the public realize they got three opportunities, because I think us at the dais, we didn't realize that.
And one thing you mentioned, the public awareness, it would be good for them to be aware, once there's a hearing.
Correct.
A formal hearing and it's closed, they can't sign up when it's time to vote, so that's their opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Something I wanted to clarify that I just learned today. Do we have a maximum number of speakers that can speak at the public comment session?
The public forum that we had?
Public forum, yes.
Yes.
We do.
There is a rule
There's a
in our
rule.
procedures, yes.
Okay.
I can't remember.
It's 30 minutes, and therefore 10 people get 3 minutes each, or 15 people get 2 minutes each.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's that's a rule or an ordinance?
Yes, ma'am, it's in your rules of procedure.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, let's go to item number 9, which is to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 15, Article 25, Section 15.
We already did
Isn't
that.
that the one we just did?
9 already. We went to-
Did we?
Just
we
did
closed
that.
it. We went to 10.
Just did we on the 10.
I did not hear no, we have a speaker on this one. So the speaker is Maya Henderson. Ms. Henderson.
You jumped to 11.
Oh, did I jump to 11? We're on 10, sorry. I'm turning too many pages. City Manager's Report. Will you give us a moment to have the Manager's Report? And I can jump to 11, we could, if we could, and then come back, but let's go with
So,
it.
super quick, I hope. So you have, all I have for you tonight is the 30-day memo, which I call it the expanded, because it's a little bit more than 30 days, and if all I did was show you November 13th and November 20th, I believe you would have asked me a bunch of questions. What we will have before you during the next couple of meetings in November and December will be the 2024 calendar. We had a lot of discussions about this year's calendar, so we want to make sure that the clerk has an opportunity to talk with you about the calendar before you actually vote on it later. You have your swearing-in ceremony on December the 4th, but we're going to make sure that we give you that Eastland update that we talked about, as well as the infrastructure update that Ms. Johnson has asked about also. And so that's what we have. And we also have finally gotten some information that I think is apples to apples as it relates to residential versus commercial ratios. And one of the issues was the way that we do it in Mecklenburg County is very different than the other 20 cities that we benchmark ourselves. Again, so we had to make sure we got as close to apples. So I believe those are some of the outstanding issues that we are going to try to address before the end of the year. I'm sorry, and let's go to your next business meeting. We'll have a discussion about the tree canopy update, as well as there will be a bus operations contract that comes before you, and we'd like to talk with you about that before that contract comes. So we have a lot of things to do between now and end of the year. That's my report.
All right. So now we'll go to item 11, to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 15, Article 25, Section 15-322 of the City Code to establish the Plaza Midwood Social District. We have a speaker now. Ms. Henderson.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council,
I am Maya Gail Henderson, a certified health and wellness coach with a bachelor's of psychology from Hampton University and a master's of social work from Howard University. I am addressing the council to inform and bring awareness to the issue of addiction and to advocate for a solution that works. As a certified health and wellness, as a certified licensed and practicing health and wellness coach, I was gravely concerned by the council's unanimous decision to make my neighborhood, Plaza Midwood, a social district. I must preface by stating that on January 4th, 2023, the World Health Organization stated that no amount of alcohol is safe for human consumption. Now, I'm not here to judge, condemn, or talk down to those who know that information and will continue to drink despite its detrimental health and social ramifications and consequences. I don't hate alcohol either. In fact, it has several important uses in our everyday lives. It is a solvent, it is a disinfectant, and it is a fuel. It is not a social, fun activity to be profited from. It is addiction and substance abuse. Now with that, I am here to say that I am honored to share an innovative and effective and easy way of curing addiction for good. Alan Carr's Easy Way method has helped over 15 million people stop smoking, and his method now has been applied to drinking and a host of other addictions, including sugar addiction, technology addiction, cocaine, you name it. Once you understand the method, you have it for life. Thanks to Alan Carr's Easy Way method, I am so proud and thankful to say I am a non-smoker, a non-drinker, and I do not rely on prescription drugs or abuse them. The Easy Way method, in essence, is about understanding addiction and achieving the correct mindset needed to stop. Easy Way has been approved and has been partnered with the World Health Organization. Easy Way success rates are unparalleled. Oh, wait, one more thing.
Ms. Henderson, now, if you have one more thing, could you give that to the city clerk, and she will include it in the minutes? And so thank you for your comments today, or this evening. And so if you can hand them to the city clerk so that she can have it for our public record, or hand it to Ms. Harris. So with that, we're now open for council discussion, and we have a motion to do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Driggs.
No, Bakari.
Oh, Mr. Bakari, sorry. All right, and then I have...
I'm not one of those addiction people.
All right, Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm really trying to understand why this action is even before us tonight. When we had the presentation last week, I commented on just the Monday before, we had a meeting where we are trying to figure out how to address the concerns that we're already having in community and in neighborhoods. And all of us have received emails from residents throughout District 1 and other areas of the city where we have individuals that are sitting in people's front yards, that are messing up people's front yards, that have left their beer cans, trash, and other things throughout. If we haven't clearly identified what our plan is as a council to address the current issues that we're seeing all in Uptown Charlotte regarding drunkenness, regarding, unfortunately, individuals that are in the parking decks that are causing harassment at a number of the restaurants, why is this even before us tonight to approve an amendment to look at a social district when we're having challenges that we're not even addressing?
I'm going to ask Mr. Baker to address the legal position of this, because I think it was established in our legislature. Is that, am I?
Your question is the legal aspect of it?
Yes,
think the
I just
question
wanna make
is
sure.
It really wasn't, but I will go
Policy.
for it.
It's a policy question.
It's a policy question. We provided, you have the legal authority to implement a social district, and you've done all of the legal requirements to get here tonight. But I think what you're asking about is a policy.
Exactly. It was not a legal question, because the legal question is, yes, we've gotten here. Policy would be, we also know that there's challenges, so it was really a question for my colleagues of why we have this, and really more importantly, a question between the mayor and the city manager, since it is decided between you the things that's going to come on the agenda. Just trying to get an understanding why we're pushing for this Plaza Midwood Social District when we have clear challenges in Uptown that have been addressed multiple times.
I have to tell you, I'm not pushing for this. This is on the agenda, and I thought it was on the agenda because the Plaza Midwood business community perhaps asked for it to be. And so I think that when people say, you know, that it's legal and it's asked for, but I'm not the person that was driving this. So I see two people shaking their heads that are in Ms. Anderson and Mr. Bakari.
Real quick. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is really simple. For people out in the public who might be a little confused now with some of this stuff, it's real simple. There's a whole other problem that this city has with ordinances in other places that we still have not yet done our job. And then there's this social district that is highly organized, that has the Merchants Association, the neighborhoods, everyone behind it is going to be highly structured. And it is my bet, based on what I've seen, it will probably be the cleanest, most organized and orderly operation around this front that we'll ever see, with the benefit of also having the economic impact that we need. This is a no-brainer, and no one in the community should associate all the problems you see every day with this, which probably is going to be managed 100 times better than your average place in town you're going to see, because of all the people that have worked so hard to structure it.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Mr. Bakari is exactly right, and I don't want to create confusion in the minds of constituents around what this is. The social district is a 15-step process. It's very rigorous. The Plaza Midwood Merchants Association has been working on this for months in conjunction with myself, CMPD, CDOT, Solid Waste Services. There have been multiple meetings. All three of those organizations within the city have no objection to this social district going up. They have a very stringent process that they will be executing. They will have ambassadors in the community once they bring it online. They're also planning to have a soft opening so they can pressure test it like retail outlets do. So the issues that are going on uptown and the ordinance are completely different and disparate than this process that this organization has been working on, and have full support from staff in various departments. And in addition to that support, I will say, being the district rep, the neighborhood has tremendous backing for this effort. I've received literally 3 emails from constituents, and I've actually reached out and spoken to all 3 of those constituents. Only 2 of them were against it, and they have a different tenure now. So this is where we are in the process. We've had many, many applications, and this particular application has completed the process, has support of city staff, has support of the community, which, by the way, is a part of the step. You have to get petitions and signatures from the community to say they support this. And the last thing that I want to say is I don't want us to operate in a mode of fear. You know, I've heard a lot of conversations around, well, if we stand up a social district, this may happen or this may happen. We haven't seen that in the dozens of social districts that exist already in the state of North Carolina, nor the social districts that now exist in Mecklenburg County. So I don't want the largest city in the state of North Carolina to operate from a fear based on something that we've never seen. The last thing I want to say also is this is not a one and done. So if we were to approve this tonight, if there were any issues to arise, and the Plaza Midwood Merchants Associations, they're here, the members are here as a part of the leadership team, they have already stated they would be the first to say we need to pause, we need to contract this, we need to reverse it. It would be a very low bureaucratic step if we needed to stop, pause, or make any modifications. So I had some comments earlier, just want to make sure we all understand, this is not a one and done. This will be our first social district, we'll learn from it, and hopefully there'll be other social districts that will learn from the first mover advantage of Plaza Midwood. I hope that helps.
Have Mr. Driggs followed by Ms. Hajmira.
So, Ms. Mayfield, I wanted to point out there was, in fact, a robust discussion during the last council about passing the ordinance, the city ordinance that allowed for social districts. At that time, there was a lot of conversation about the safety issues and pros and cons, and we thought about the pros. I mean, the pros are that this creates a fun environment. It adds to the city's reputation as a fun place. The downside is that you don't want certain behaviors. So when we talked about it, we put a burden on merchants and others to ensure that the outcome emphasizes the positive and not the negative. So I'm going to support it. And I will say my own inbox has not been flooded. I don't know whether people just don't write to me about this stuff, but I can't say that I have seen a flood of emails coming in. And there's always going to be some dissent, and the concern about safety or about conditions in the city is real, but I really think that the heavy preponderance here favors proceeding with this. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hajmira, followed by Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with what Ms. Anderson said and Mr. Bukhari said. They're absolutely right on point there. These are two separate issues. And just because of us approving the social districts does not preclude us from making continued progress on addressing public defecation, public urination, and drinking in public. I know that committee work is ongoing, thanks to Councilmember Watlington and her committee that's doing the work. I just want to ensure the public that we are going to continue to address that issue. We're not putting brakes on addressing that quality of life issue that is very important. And even public speaker Ms. Henderson raised that issue. That is not specific to specific part of our city. I think that's an issue that that you see across the city. I know even in Charlotte East, we have seen that, especially in the shopping strip area where many neighborhood leaders have advocated against that behavior. So I think we need to address that issue throughout the city, and we will continue to do that. But at the same time, Ms. Anderson is absolutely right. We do not need to operate out of fear, and we do not need to get fear in the way of progress, of supporting businesses, supporting small businesses. And Plaza Midwood is one of the most walkable neighborhoods in our city. I mean, I love going to the Plaza Midwood neighborhood. It is really the urban planner's dream because it's so walkable to restaurants, bars, shops, coffee shops. So really this helps us get closer to our 2040 goal where we want more people to walk. Really create this 10-minute neighborhood community. I mean, I love going to the Undercurrent Coffee almost at least a couple of times in a month and just walking around. And this really enables that type of culture that we want to see. Just because we are opening social district doesn't mean that people will only be walking around with alcohol. Well, you'll see me and our family walking around with a cup of coffee from Undercurrent that we love. So I think this really gets us closer to this trend of enabling more modes of transportation, where we see more people walking, biking, even riding a scooter. So I'll be supporting this. I do want to also recognize that I had several residents from our community, these are neighborhood leaders, that are not sure how this is going to go. They are concerned about public drinking. They're concerned about crime going up. They're concerned about this not panning out well. Well, in that case, my response is, let's just try. If that doesn't work, Ms. Anderson said it really well, that we have no problem pausing, but we got to give it a try. We cannot let fear in the way of progress. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I think with this issue, we have to understand that two things can be right at the same time, right? Just comparing, for instance, I've heard a lot of comparison, Charlotte in different cities. Yes, we are definitely not the first ones, and there are dozens, over a dozen social districts around North Carolina right now. But I've been traveling around the state, and I was in Lenore a couple weeks ago, and I looked up and there was a sign that I was in a social district. I can tell you that the situation in Lenore is very different than the situation here in Charlotte. That is why the City Council has been very intentional about the process. This is something that, Charlotte is a very unique town. There's never been a city like it in North Carolina, and nobody else has the context of how to deal with the good things and the potential detrimental issues that we have here. So while it has been long coming, it has been designed and created to have longevity. So if this is successful, it can last for a long time. This can be something that is very innovative, perhaps, but is this necessarily something that is going to change the fabric of a neighborhood? Not necessarily. Social areas where people already go to enjoy the nightlife, there may or may not be an influx because of this. When you look at cities around town, cities around the country where this does create destinations, places like Savannah, Las Vegas, New Orleans, there is a very intentional and defined culture that is created over long periods of time. So what happens tomorrow is hopefully will pair in comparison to what's going to be formed over decades in certain areas. Laws versus what is allowed in these social districts. What is still illegal around the city is still illegal in social districts in terms of certain behaviors, public drunkenness even, and things that result in that. However, the City Council is going to have to deal with the issues of equity. What we've talked about a lot at this dais is two Charlottes, and you are going to literally have two different parts of Charlottes with different rules. While they are allowed under the law, there are certain currently situations like MSDs that allow for different roles in different geographies. But when we are having two conversations about criminalizing alcoholism, and in some places making it more liberalized, the consumption of alcohol, and in fact encouraging it, I would say, City Council, you're going to have potentially people from all over this city that are going to feel that friction. And this is something that you're going to have to deal with and approach on the head, not just kind of sidestep it and say, well, we're allowed to do this, so we're going to do it. So when the folks come into this dais feeling like they are treated differently based on where they are in this city, that is going to be a real thing, and that's something that you're going to have to deal with. So two things can be correct at the same time, and I think this is a perfect example in many different situations where that's going to be the case.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor.
Mayor,
Any further discussion?
I need there to be very clear understanding. My questions are not from a place of fear or misunderstanding. Yes, we've all traveled at some level. We've gone to New Orleans, we've gone to New York, we've also seen some of the impacts. We also have social districts throughout the state. Greenville, North Carolina social districts are from noon to 10. Greensboro are from 12 to 9. Huntersville's, theirs from 11 until 10. We are proposing here a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. There's a very big difference and a very clear difference between walking around with a coffee or a latte and this note saying registration of the social district with the North Carolina Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. So let's not play that word game. The comments and the concerns that I have are just that. I'm not interested, and to be perfectly honest, because we have some of my business leaders here, I'm glad that y'all support it, but I'm also concerned about the residents who still live in the area. For those who are able to still maintain home ownership in the area that has quickly changed and gotten extremely expensive. As an adult, go get your drink. I'm gonna go out and have my drink if I choose to. That doesn't mean that I want to sit up and take it around with me from bar to bar to bar to bar. I'm asking for us to make sure on the front end that we do have some very clear language. Saying we're gonna fix it later if a challenge comes up. We have spent the last 8 months hearing the so-called, well, that was an unintended consequence. If it is brought up at the beginning, for us to at least have a real conversation about it, if we're saying that we've looked at other cities, just in North Carolina, but we're still proposing a 10 to 10, we're still saying, yes, CMPD has told us that the numbers are down regarding indecent exposure or whatever the issue is that is related to drinking because they've been overwhelmed to the point that they're not even responding to a majority of the calls based on the language that was presented to us. That is a very disingenuous statement to make it seem like, oh, this is going to be okay because if it goes bad, we'll fix it. We do not have a habit of addressing anything immediately when it's been addressed. We've had people that have come down and spoken to us on numerous issues that it's taken months to even address their issues. So I don't want there to be this misunderstanding that, oh, this is a unanimous decision that we're just gonna move forward. I would like to see some more parameters. Council's it only takes 6. They gonna vote for whoever they wanna vote for. Go forward down the line. We have challenges. Go back, read the meeting minutes and see who supported it. I'm asking for why it's back so soon when I asked some questions last time that I didn't get an answer to. I mentioned the time periods for the social districts of some of our neighboring cities in North Carolina. Nothing was presented back. So for it to come forward to me, I'm gonna be a no vote, whether I'm the only no vote. When we go back in history and have to review this like we've had to do on so many other occasions, on so many other issues, I need it to be on record, the fact that I had some very clear concerns about it, but all it takes is 6 votes.
You know, I really appreciate your stance and your comments. I want to figure out how, when you say that you didn't get a response because you mentioned something, I think sometimes when we say, I want something, and we're talking about a policy item, we're trying to get enough information from everyone, or at least to be able to act on that, to have something that we know that we can do. So sometimes I think when we say, you know, give me this, and if we don't have a consensus that that's what we want to try to do or figure out. So I would really like it if we could kind of think through that again. So Ms. Mayfield, thank you for your comments. Everyone else, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, please raise your hands. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All opposed? 2. We have 2 opposed. All right, thank you, everyone. To the business community, you've heard the comments, and thank you for your preparation through all of this, because I know it took a lot of work to get it done. Okay, the next item on our agenda is item 12, and it is Urban and Community Forestry Grant. The action is to accept grants from the U.S. Department of Agriculture Forest Service in the total amount of $1,100,000 for tree maintenance and canopy care programs and adopt a budget ordinance appropriating same amount.
So moved.
Approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor, please raise your hands. All right, that passes. Item 13 is a municipal agreement for Albemarle Road Pedestrian Safety and Connectivity Project. Adopt a resolution authorizing the manager to execute a municipal agreement with NCDOT to accept transportation alternative program funds in the amount of $1,756,000 for the Albemarle Road Pedestrian Safety and Connectivity Project, and adopt a budget ordinance appropriating same amount.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hands. Okay. Mr. Baker, we need a motion to go into closed session. It's my understanding there was an economic development closed session tonight.
That is correct, Madam Mayor, members of council. I need a closed session, a motion to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A4 to discuss matters relating to the location of industries or business in the city of Charlotte, including potential economic development incentives that may be offered in negotiations.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of going into closed session, please raise your hand. All right, we'll go in the back room. We will we will dismiss from the closed session at the end of that session. So you guys, thank you very much for joining us for our meeting tonight.